Hi, in this video I will talk about using the OneZone Lightroom filters to help you delete extra exposures when shooting the OneZone method 2. If you remember from the last video, we installed our Lightroom presets, and you will find them only in the grid mode. And you'll find them in the library filter bar. If you'll notice right now, we have library filters off. If you look and you've installed the OneZone filters properly, you should notice 3 filters. The first 2 are different degrees of filtering. Level 1 will filter just unflagged photos, while level 2 will filter flagged photos with no star ratings. The third filter will just select rejected photos, and it may come handy at a later time. But in this video, I'll show the example of the level 1 filtering unflagged photographs. Now, why do we use this? Because here is a shoot I took of 8 pictures of snowbanks. Now, the reason there are 24 images is because the OneZone method recommends taking a base exposure and then plus or minus 2/3 of a stop when you're using method 2, or 1/3 of a stop if you're using a spot meter on method 1. Well, first we need to find the photos we do want. So instead of looking at 24 photos, we'll use Lightroom stacking feature. I'll just right mouse click, I'll go to stacking, and we'll say auto stack by time. Auto stack by time, we're going to set this to 1 second. Now, when we do that, you'll notice that in the background, we start seeing these little shields appear with the number 3 on them. The reason we see the 3s is that Lightroom is selecting exposure sets that were taken within the time set above. Right mouse click again, and we're going to say collapse all stacks. This presents us with the 8 snapshots we took. So we'll just go ahead, and in the loop mode, I'm going to look here and try to go through all these exposures and check to see which one I want. So if I look at the first exposure, I may like this one. I'm going to flag it. I'm going to go over here to the second one. It's loading the preview, and this looks pretty sharp. And besides, I probably would sharpen it a little more in the processing, but let me go down here. Now, I'm going to flag this one, and I'm going to go over here and say, well, this is a different exposure. This has the sunlight on the top of the snow drift. However, I do see a little black post up there, but I can always crop that out. I'm going to make a pick here, and I'm going to go to the next one. It's similar to the last one. This is this one. Now, this is interesting. This is when I closed the door and was getting cold. So as you can see, this was shot to a screen. So this is going to get deleted. And the same thing here and here. They all have screens in them. So right now I have 3 of the 8 selected. Now, I want to check to see which is the best exposure of the set. So let's go into the develop mode here. And while I look through this, I may say, this is the first one I flagged, and let me open it up. And when I open it up, I see that there is a lighter exposure, this is my bracket, and a darker exposure. I always want to choose the lightest exposure without seeing any red highlight clippings. As you can see that if it was overexposed, I would see these clippings. So what I'm going to do is select the brightest exposure. Then I'm going to click on the second exposure. And this is very interesting. When I click on it, it'll move right to the first exposure. You see the lightest now is on the first. All right, I'm going to pick this one. I'm going to set the flag as flagged. And you can see I can hit the letter P to do this, but it flags it. As a matter of fact, If I go to this one that was flagged, I no longer need that flagged. So I'd go up to my photos and I would say set the flag to unflagged. And again, you'll notice that you could always use a keyboard shortcut for U. So I'm going to unflag that. So now I'm going to click on the first and close the stack. Let me take a look at this next flag set. And I'll open this up. And I'll look at my brightest exposure in this case and see that this is a bright exposure without showing any red. So what I'm going to do is click on the shield. It'll move it right to the beginning. I'm going up to photo and I'm going to set this as a flag. But instead of doing it here, I'm going to just press the letter P for pick. And I'm going to go to the initial one I took and unflag it. But again, I'm not going to use my mouse. I'll use the quick shortcut, the letter U, the keyboard U. So I'll just go down here and press the letter U, and you'll notice that the flag has been removed. I'll collapse this one. I'm going to look at this one here. Remember, I think this was the one that had the sun in it. That's pretty good. So I'm going to open this up, and again, I'm going to choose the lightest one. Well, now when I see the lightest one, I see that some of the highlights here are blown out. So in this case, I will just keep my very first exposure. And now I have 3 images that I want to process. But before I process them, I'd like to clean up my hard drive, get rid of some of these images. So here's where our filters come into play. I'm going to go back to the library, and remember, we will only see these filters in the grid mode. Here's the library filters, and if for some reason you don't see it, remember the backslash key. If you hit it inadvertently or you're missing the filter bar, just press the backslash key and it'll disclose it. So now, here are my 24 photos. They're all been collapsed to 8, but I only really want to work on these 3. So what I'll do now is simply right-click, stacking, and I'll say expand all stacks. Now here's where our filter will come in. I'm going to go down to the filter and choose level 1. It'll filter just the unflagged photos. When I do this, you'll notice that Lightroom will say you have 21 of 24 photos. It's because the other 3 have a flag on them. So what I'm going to do now here is say edit, select all, and now I'm going to press my delete key. And of course, Lightroom will warn me saying, do you want to remove these from the catalog or delete them from the disk? I want to delete them from the disk. When we do this, I'll close the filter, and you'll notice we only have 3 files waiting for us to process. The OneZone library filter will assist you in deleting unwanted OneZone exposures. That's it. That's how to use the OneZone library filters to remove any excess bracketed exposures. Until the next time.